Hello! Thank you for joining me. Today we are going to be working on a Galaxy ink tumbler like this. I'm going to show you how to ink the base and then cover it with black alcohol ink to get the Galaxy look, and just little flourishes I do. The ink base is something that I learned from another maker. I learned it a couple of years ago, not too long after I first started making cups, and I wish that I could remember her name so that I could give her credit. But I took what she taught me and just kind of added my own flair and turned what I do into my own thing. But I am ever so appreciative to her for teaching me this technique. So I'm going to show you how to do it. You can do it on a white painted base or a white glitter base for the inking method. A little later I will talk to you more about different bases that you can use for Galaxies. You're not certainly not stuck to inking. There's quite a few, I mean really there's no limit on things that you can make a Galaxy out of. So I will turn you down and we will get started and have some fun. All right, so I have my alcohol inks. I am just doing 2 colors in each color family that I chose today. You also need a black alcohol ink. So you can do whatever combination of colors you want, however many colors you want. There's no rules, there's no limit. You get to do this however you want to do it. And that's the really fun part. Now, my favorite thing to use are magic erasers. So I just buy cheap magic erasers and I cut them into about 8 cubes. For me, that's what I found releases the ink the best and just works well for me. You can also use gauze. I don't recommend cotton balls or anything like that. They'll typically leave behind fibers in the ink. So just find what works for you and go from there. So I just put a few drops on a corner. Make sure you wear gloves because you will get ink all over your hands. I just pick a spot and start inking. Don't forget your bottom. I get some on the bottom of the cup too. Sorry. Excuse me. So then I move on to my next color in the same color family. Put it on a separate corner. And then I just start going around the colors that I already did. And I overlap them because you'll get the cool mixing that alcohol ink does. And see, I had it run down, but that's all right. It's not a problem. Just keep moving and going around. Eventually you are going to fill up all of the white space. So it's okay to just take up lots of room. You really can't mess these up. These have been some of my favorite tumblers to make since I started. I'm just going to do the same thing with the next color. And like I said, eventually all of these are going to touch and overlap. So don't be hesitant about making large spots. All right. Switch to the next color. And the nice thing about alcohol inks is they dry quickly. That one's a little more red than I remember, but we will work with it. All right, so we've got the basic outline of each of our colors. And so now I just go back in and fill in different spots. And I want these color mixes. If you don't like those, then be a little more careful than I'm being. Just keep going. Just keep swimming. Just keep dabbing. Okay, now I'm going to switch back to this color. And I'm basically just going to fill in the rest with this. Sorry. Get a little excited. And as you can see, since the colors have gotten mixed, this part's a little darker, and I am okay with that. All right, so we now have the entire cup covered with ink. So what I'm going to do now, I'll be right back. Let me grab my alcohol. So I have 90% isopropyl alcohol. Just gonna put a little bit in this cup. And then I'm gonna use a different piece of my dry erase. Just barely dip it in there. And then I have a towel over here that I'm gonna dab it off on, because you really do not want very much in there. And if I see anywhere that looks kind of harsh, I can kind of dab at it to try to soften up the edges. And I'll do this method again once the black is on there. So as you can see, the way that the alcohol inks react with the alcohol, it's making and I'm just gonna, since that was a little more red than I intended, I'm just gonna kind of go over the red with the alcohol to break it up a little bit. Take this part very slow. Make sure you're really getting as much alcohol as you can out of the magic eraser. So it just gives it these really cool effects. Alcohol inks are really fun to play with. See what different things you can do with them. All right, I'm pretty happy with that. So just to show you another thing that you can do, I do this every once in a while. It's not something I do on every galaxy that I do, but you can stick your fingers in the alcohol and flick, and you'll get these lines of spots. So that can be kind of fun to do if that's the effect that you want to go for. And again, you know, like on the red, just to break it up a little more and give it a little more dimension. So that's just a fun look that you can put on there. So we're done with the color. So I'm just gonna set these lids back on really quick and set these back out of the way. We're now gonna move on to the black alcohol ink. Keep your gloves on. I've had black stained hands for days because I can't get it out. So another handy dandy. And I keep the one that I use for the alcohol handy because I am going to use it again with the black. So normally I would go seal these colors with Krylon triple thick spray before I start on the black, but just for time's sake, today I'm not going to do that, but I do recommend it just because with some alcohol inks, once epoxy is on them, they will fade. So, all right. Get a few drops of black on the corner. And then what I do is I find different areas that I really like and don't necessarily want to cover up. So let's see. So like here. And I make a couple of big spots, and then from there we'll talk more about what else I do. So I just go kind of around what I don't want to cover up. So this, what's in here, I know I'm not going to put any more ink over that. And then I just kind of go from there. And as you can see, as I'm inking, I will leave little spots open so that you can see the color. I don't necessarily want it to be a large spot, but I want those gaps in the black to make it not so solid. So if I kind of miss a spot while I'm inking, I don't worry too much about it. And again, you just keep working with it until you like it. Just keep getting more ink as needed. And just keep going around. All right, I'm just about done here. I'm just going to do the bottom. All right. So the black part goes pretty fast as long as you don't overthink it. And I'm gonna go ahead and put this on my turner and let it, let it dry for a minute before we start on the next step. All right. There we go. Okay. Like I said, alcohol ink dries pretty quickly. So while we're waiting for that to dry, I'll just talk you through what I'm doing for the next steps. I already have my epoxy mixed. About 20 milliliters. This is a 20 skinny. So about 20 milliliters to cover that. And I have a glitter mix that I'll mix into the epoxy to resemble the stars and things like that, galaxies. This particular one is Sia from Woody's Goodies. A lot of times I just make my own mix unless I happen to have a mix that I think would go really well. But usually I just try to have an ultra fine, some kind of silvery, a little more chunky, just a variety of sizes and things like that. Now, the other things that I use is I have purple and black chunkies from Recollections. And then I have a little mixture of stars. I mix them together. That's totally your call. I have black ones, holographic silver, opal, and purple. These really cool iridescent purple. And so personally, my preference, I just mix them all together. And in a little while, I'll show you what I'm gonna do with those. But for now, I'm gonna mix a little bit of this glitter into my epoxy. Now this is where you have to decide how glittery you want things. If you want just touch, you know, or if you want more than that, if you want it to be super glittery, you can absolutely do that. Just add more than I added. I have a tendency to add a ton. So I'm just gonna get this glitter stirred in. I will say if you do too much glitter, it can distract from the pretty colors that make up the base of your galaxy. So here we go. Got our glittery epoxy all mixed up. I think this is about ready to go. Oh, I forgot. The other thing I was gonna go back to my alcohol. Switch to a different corner. Now this just depends on how you like your black. So you can go around and soften up the edges of your black so it's not quite so harsh. See, look at me getting ahead of myself. Now normally, like I said, because I would have this, I would have sprayed the color, you wouldn't get any kind of mixing of the black into the color. But because I didn't do that this time, there will be a little bit of that. So again, that all just depends on the look you want. I do it both ways. Sometimes I leave them harsh, sometimes I soften them up. It is absolutely personal preference. All right, I think we're ready to go. And I'm gonna switch my glove really quick because like I said, I have ink everywhere. New one on. Woo! These are a little difficult to put on once your hand gets sweaty. Oh, yep. Try again. Sorry guys, if you're gonna watch my tutorials, this is what you get. The real stuff that happens. All right. Now that we've gotten through that obstacle, same as covering any other kind of tumbler. Just start spreading the epoxy on there. So as you can see, the glitter is giving the star look. And while we're spreading this out, just so you know, I use KS resin. And my turner is from the Cup Turner. And you can find her on Facebook and Etsy under that name. Now don't forget the bottom. Give the bottom some love. But not too much. You don't want a ton of epoxy on the bottom. Now I just start filling in. Make sure it's nice and covered. I am loving this glitter mix for this purpose. It is an awesome galaxy mix. All right, so I'm going to leave it at that for epoxy coverage, and I can take my glove off now because I'm not going to be touching the epoxy anymore. So what I do at this point is I start with my chunkies. And you can do this however you want. This is just the way I've always done it, so it's the way I do it. And like I tell you every time, there's no one way to do any of these. So I just lay these down in different places in little clusters. And I just go until I see it come back around. And then I do take a few and poof, toss them on the bottom. Now see, a couple of them got on the, right on the edge, and you want to move those. You do not want chunky glitter sitting diagonal on the edge of your cup because the sharp points are almost impossible to get rid of when they're sitting that way. So always move them if you see that. Okay. So I'm done with the black ones. And next I move on to the purple. And I do the exact same thing. Just little clusters here and there. These chunkies, I try not to put over the color. When I start with the stars, I will put some over the colors. Making a mess. All right, so this is the point where I take my stars and I just drop those wherever I want. On the color, on the black. I love the stars. All right, I think that that is probably good. So here we go. This is one way of making an ink-based gallery, a galaxy, not gallery, galaxy. So other things that you can do, you can use a glitter base. For example, you could lay down the same kind of base that you'd lay for a geode, and then you just do the same inking process. You could lay down a mica base like this. Same inking process over it with the black. Not with the colors, just with the black. So the possibilities are really endless. You can do it on almost anything using this method. So I hope that you make a galaxy, have some fun, and I will see you again another time. Thank you.